Thom, what's intrapersonal therapy?
Intrapersonal therapy is really working with relationships. We're defining issues as relationship, but within ourselves. With the different, a lot of times people talk, other people who call it parts work, or Alan calls it parts work. I like a lot. Gestalt therapists talk to these people. The difference with what I started doing many years ago, I think, with intrapersonal was it wasn't I was just using it as a philosophy or theory base for how I was working with clients, but I began just to teach the clients more how to do this for themselves, so that they could actually see themselves as managers of their own consciousness, sort of the person, because one of the things that I'm big on telling people is we don't control much, but we are in charge. And so there's a big difference between being in control and being in charge. And being in charge means we are the decision maker that makes the choices about what we do as we go through life. And a lot of times when we are not aware of all the different parts of ourselves, all the different aspects of our personalities, when we don't have a decision maker in place, what happens is that's when we actually kind of come off like a split personality or a multiple personality, is because it'll be like one part of us takes over for a while, and then another part takes over, and then another part, and it's like we'll feel like we're just so many different people. And what I'm telling people about intrapersonal is that we're not going to stop being different parts. We're all part, but we just need one particular part of ourselves, the authentic, the central Thom or the central Patrick, to sit at the hub of the wheel and to basically practice. Well, actually, one of my nutshells, which is originally written as an interpersonal, but also works intrapersonally, which is, I respect your opinion, I trust my judgment. I respect your opinion, I trust my judgment, meaning and respect doesn't mean I agree with it. It means I'm hearing you, I understand this is what is going on. So because we're going to find that we have, at times, when you just ask the simple question of what do I want, there's multiple answers to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you refer to your committee. You're always
Yeah.
interacting with the committee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, one of your avatars or former avatars is Tequila Boy. So
Yeah.
Tequila Boy just sits on the committee among the many other
Yeah.
Thoms.
Well,
I'm getting this image of the Last Supper.
Exactly. We need someone to paint that.
So hopefully your committee members don't fuck you like that.
That's no, so far. So although I probably have complained to that level, but in my life at some point. But well, that makes a good point, because I mean, certainly Tequila Boy is the character of the addiction for me, of course. And it's like, and I like bringing that up because that one, along with I would say the should monster I often talk about, that really is the center of what I would refer to as nothing less than self-hate in my life, is, it's very important for people to understand that when you become aware of these relationships you have inside yourself, and this is where intrapersonal it's really cool, because it really does mimic the interpersonal world too, because these are codependent relationships. My addiction is a codependent relationship. My should monster was a codependent relationship, in which basically, and let's define codependency, because there's all kinds of ways to define it, but codependency, it can be described in the simplest form of whatever you think of me will determine what I feel about myself. Whatever you think of me will determine what I feel about myself. And so what happens is we give our power away. And so what I want people to know, like when it comes to an addiction, because people will say, well, it feels like it just takes over. And what I want people to know is an addiction or an eating disorder, for instance, anything that has to do with behaviorals like that, is it does not have the power to physically make us do anything. But it can intimidate us, it can con us, it can seduce us, it can just trick us. into handing that power over. And it's really fascinating when you get into talking to different people, when they start to identify the ways that they've been conned and fooled into handing their power back over. So Tequila Boy comes back in and says, well, that was a rough conversation you had with Patrick today. So I mean, it's like, it's not like, it's not like you're going to drink every day, but it's like, this might be a good day just to make a little exception to the rule. And I mean, and I can tell, just by you listening to that, you're familiar with that little voice that is always trying to get a little foot in the door. So that's a way that we hand our power away. So that's one of the things about the whole intrapersonal relationship stuff.
I was thinking about you and Tequila Boy. It's a bit like these days, it's probably a bit like somebody you had a fling with at the office. You don't really talk to each other, but you see them across the way there, and
yeah, but it's more than a fling. It was a long-term relationship.
It was more like a marriage.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about it. He's not so threatening. He's not so threatening anymore. And I always want people to know when we talk about separating these different personalities, first of all, I want people to know that, that we never forget that it's a metaphor. So the good news about metaphors, we can change it to work with this in any way we want to. I think sometimes people will get too attached to a particular metaphor system and think, well, this is the way this has to be, and go like, no, it's just a way. I think ultimately intrapersonal process just helps us understand that the way we think is by inner conversation. We talk to ourselves. I used to begin one of my workshops by saying about all of this stuff. I would say, how many of you talk to yourselves? And most of the people would raise their hands. Some people wouldn't. And then I would say, how many of you who didn't raise your hands just said, do I talk to myself? Do I, and we get a joke out of it, but we make the point that basically we all do. We all talk to ourselves and we answer back. And so sometimes what we find when we look at the intrapersonal, and this might be one of the most important points just to make about this, is that when we're not conscious of the fact that we're having these intrapersonal conversations, we let the saboteurs, the ones who are more destructive than productive, have the last word. And that's what we don't want. Ultimately, what recovery becomes is I get the last word. So Tequila Boy can say whatever he wants. Should Monster can tell me any horrible thing he thinks about me, and I get the last word and say, thank you for sharing.